What's going on, y'all? This podcast is brought to you by Modern Roots Life. Modern Roots Life is a Christian-owned and operated company, and it's bringing real health back to its roots. They offer powerful, all-natural health supplements such as beef liver, cod liver oil, beef tallow, magnesium, and mineral-rich salts, all sourced the way God intended. Clean, simple, and from the earth. So whether you're looking to boost your energy, restore mineral balance, or just fuel your family with real nourishment, Modern Roots Life has got you covered. Guys, in this community, we're trying to get healthy in our mind, in our body, and our spirit. So don't neglect your health. If you want more information, check out modernrootslife.com and check the link in my description. You know, people often ask me how they can support me. Well, I think it's pretty cool if you can support me by supporting the people who support me, and you get something in return. And being healthy is a pretty good return. All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the show. I've got a great podcast for you today. I have the one and only JayDreamerZ with me today, and it's the second time he's been on the show, but it's been a while. But anyways, welcome back, Jay. Thanks for coming on.
Yes. Hey, what's up, dude? It's great to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Obviously, lots of people in the audience, I'm sure, know Jay, but for those who don't, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself and like what you kind of research and what you do?
Yeah. So I've been a public speaker and, online presenter, YouTuber, etc. For 11 years, I've been doing this. And I started doing this just to actually record things for posterity for my children, because I have like so much to share, but they're children, and I wanted something so they can understand me a bit better as their father and maybe pass on some information as they get older. So that's
you want to be like Jor-El passing on his information to Cal.
Yeah,
they put the crystal in there.
But yeah, so that's how I started doing things. And then after I started sharing my own, innovative ideas and unique perspectives on alternative history and the purpose of things and philosophy and stuff. But especially whenever I tied in my eschatological beliefs of the end times and stuff, people started subscribing, and then those subscribers pretty much started demanding, like, every time I'd get on, like, you should write a book. You should make this into a book. You need to write a book. I'll buy it. How can I help you to write a book? So I was like, well, I've always wanted to write a book, so I'll write a book. So I sat down and I had so much information, and I don't like to confuse people with just giving them too much. You know what I mean? Even in my books. So I made my book purposefully, my first book, more like a Cliff's Notes, like, hey, here's the meat and potatoes for this section and this section and this section. Getting right to all the different elements of like the apocalypse and the creation story and stuff like that. But anyway, so I did all that, and then I also at the same time, a few years after, started my own website where I was like, well, shoot, books are cool and everything, but I'm a more visual audio kind of person. I want an experience. So I started my own website, and on the website, I put all the there's music that matches all the themes and pages, and things are moving around, and it's animated, and it really, if you feel like you're a part of it's like an online amusement park for a conspiracy theorist or something, I would say. But yeah, I've been doing that for, 10 years or so. Started my whole truth seeking path, probably just when I was a kid. I always, kind of stood out and, did my own thing, I guess. I didn't, fall to peer pressure a lot or anything. I was just always wondering at the world around me. And then when I was older, that's whenever I got into Christianity, and I studied the Bible, and I'm like, this is amazing. Look at all of the mysteries. I need to figure them all out.
Right. Right.
It was riddle after riddle for me to solve, and that started my path.
Yeah, and so the reason I appreciate you, and for the audience, I'm sure everybody kind of recognized by now, Jay likes to point out things that are like in the video games and the movies and the TV shows. And that's exactly what I like to do, where we're kind of looking for like the glimmers of truth in quote unquote in the fiction, because a lot of times you get more truth in the fiction than you do get from the quote unquote history or the news or all that kind of thing. But the funny thing, we were just talking kind of off air. So Jay, you kind of identified yourself as a conspiracy theorist, and I have done the same thing. But at this point, I'm kind of almost getting like sick of that term because of the way it's been. I don't know, just the way it is today. Like, what is a conspiracy theorist? And it seems like that, we're going down the rabbit hole to find truth, but it seems like some people are just going to find deeper parts of the rabbit hole, or like more rabbit holes.
Yeah.
They're really not too interested in what seems to be true, but it's more like, I don't know, it just seems odd now. What's your take on that?
I think it's like more shining the light on what's not true. You know what I mean? Like they're making a bigger deal about the lies and the deceit and the deception than they are the truth of the matter, the crux and the core of what it is. So I like terms like truth seeker or fringe philosopher, as opposed to conspiracy theorist, which is, today more of like a nutcase.
Right. It's becoming that. Well, I mean, I think that's the thing. It's kind of like it makes sense that as lots of us have researched and lots of us have been able to collaborate and learn from each other, we're getting closer to, I believe, what's true about the world we live in and all the lies we've been told. But I think that if the devil is smart, which I believe he is, now it's more like flood the system. Just flood the system with everything. And then it's kind of like there was one point where we're all pointing at the news. You guys are fake. But now we all have each other, like kind of like the Spider-Man meme. Like, you're fake too. So like everybody's controlled opposition. Everybody's fake. They're nobody's who they say that they are.
Right.
And so
exactly.
Like, how do you kind of navigate that in like what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, I remember the first time it really blew my mind as somebody accused me of being fake. And I couldn't even conceive of that, and I'm like, I'm out here trying to like share the truth and share my, help people to put the pieces together and stuff. And as I am now, I have a plastic cup here and it's got coffee in it, decaffeinated coffee, but whatever. And I took a sip, and this viewer was, just watching because, oh my God, what is that? And he saw it was a plastic cup. He's like, nobody drinks hot coffee out of a plastic coffee cup. And next thing you know, I'm in the CIA and I'm a paid shill and I'm an agent. And I'm like, so then I took it personally at first. So I literally did a live stream as I'm in my Rent-A-Center uniform walking to work, like, hey everyone, just so you know, here's where I work at Rent-A-Center because I'm poor and I don't get paid by the government to trick you all. You know what I mean? Like, I just really like made this whole video about it. Yeah, if I'm gonna be a shill, when's
all the money gonna start flowing in from
I know.
the 3-letter agencies?
Yeah,
they haven't sent me a check yet.
Yeah, but like I think there's multiple levels of things that are happening. I think where people error, or where they sort of stop making progress as truth seekers is, I call it planting your flag. It's like they pick up their flag and they're like, oh, I'm leaving this camp and I'm free now. But then they walk a few feet and stick their flag in the ground. Now they're stuck there, like
right.
There's no growing. And like that's something I really took from my time when I went to church and reading the Bible and stuff, was the concept of growth and as opposed to being stagnant and just, like stagnant water is gray water. It's nasty water. It's, it's polluted water and stuff, but running water that's continuously moving, is good. So I wanted to be more like the running water.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know that biblically, I always think about when Jesus talks about when you put your hand to the plow, like, don't look back. It's like this constant forward movement. Yeah. And I think that's where people get lost, is like, oh yeah, I'm done. I'm here. And now I just need to play ninjutsu or whatever. Like, I need to just fend off all the attacks now because I'm already right here in the perfect place. But we know biblically you kind of have to be sanctified and you have to continue to grow and learn. And part of that's acknowledging that you're wrong about things that you once believed. And because otherwise everybody's wrong about something today. And if we knew exactly what it was, we'd change it right away, but we don't. So it means that should give people a little bit of humility about the things you think you know for sure. Because I know that people in this audience, and myself included, that I would not have come around to like the ideas like the little season and Tartaria or the old world stuff if I was saying, well, I already know what's true 2 years ago or 4 years ago. How could I get from there to here
Right.
if I said, well, I'm right and all these other people are wrong?
Yeah, and then
And
you have to base all of your new findings off of the old precept. Otherwise, it all starts to crumble. So,
right,
like for
exactly.
example,
Especially,
on my channel, I'll give you like a real actual example of a time I was totally wrong about something, and I was so on fire for this concept. I mean, I was wrong in part, I'll say, but I watched the video of the ancient giant trees that were all cut down and stuff. I don't know if you ever
okay,
saw
yeah,
the
we
no
just talked
trees.
about that in the last podcast. Yeah.
Yes. So when I first saw that, I'm like, that's all true. That like I was convinced, like that's 100% true. And instead of taking my time with it, now I have a totally different theory as to what the mesas really are and stuff. I still believe that there were, gigantism exists and that there were giant trees similar to sequoias and redwoods and stuff, but maybe even much bigger. But the mountains themselves, I have a totally different theory as to how they were created and why they look like tree stumps and stuff like that. So I didn't put that in my books. I stopped making videos about that. Like I had to admit, like, okay, I'm changing my mind on that actually. So
Well, that's funny because it's funny how a lot of people they get so dogmatic where every mountain used to be a tree, or
yes.
every mountain used to be some kind of an animal or giant.
Mm-hmm.
And then some people would say that these mountains were actually all cities that were melted.
Yes. Yeah,
And
every
I
one
think
of them.
I think it could be all three.
Yeah,
Could be
that's what I'm
true.
saying. Yeah, like that we should. I found that that's the case with so many times in life, that it's oftentimes everybody has a little piece of the truth. Like everybody is coming at it from a perspective where they have found some truth there. Just like that story of the blind men that are all touching different parts of the elephant. You know that story?
Yeah.
Same concept, So that's why getting back to like the video games and movies and stuff like that, that's why I branched out from just like, oh, they're lying to us on the news or whatever, or they're trying to hypnotize us, or they're disclosure in plain sight, or they're hiding it in plain sight on the news. And I'm like, well, if it's on the news, what else could it be on television? And then I started thinking about the movies, and that's when I started my whole truth in movies, segment that I do or whatever, decoding the movies and stuff. And then I'm like, I started seeing the same things. The more I started doing it, I saw it in commercials, back when I watched commercials. And then I saw it in, TV shows, and I saw it in newspapers and magazines. And I was like, damn, this is everywhere. So I heard it in the music. The music industry is insane. And then video games. I'm like, I play video games to ground myself, to really escape from all that credit, like to not think that much and just get lost in this video game. But the next thing you know, I'm like playing some video game and this concept pops up that's just in my face and I can't deny it. And I'm like, I know what that means. I know what that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know where that comes from. Okay.
That's what I said. It's funny because I feel the same way, where it's funny, even going back to like, so the Super Bowl was this past weekend. And there was a time where, I grew up playing sports and I just enjoyed, I enjoyed the kind of escapism of just sitting around on Saturdays or Sundays and just watching football games all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually it got down to like the Kaepernick stuff where they're kneeling and everything was political.
Right.
And I was like, I'm trying to not get into, like, I don't want, like, it's funny because I grew up as a Redskins fan, and I would go to, we had season tickets for a while. And we're about 3 hours from the stadium, and we would drive up. And I know the majority of Redskins fans probably who live around DC are probably, politically, we probably don't align at all. You think about like, because I'm more of like a right-wing conservative, and like that area is quite liberal.
Right.
But we're rooting for the Redskins. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, you know what I mean? Like our guy just scored a touchdown and we're high-fiving and everything's good. But then it's like they force the politics in it. And now you're like, I can't even watch this anymore to escape. Even like,
yes,
you have Bad Bunny. And so it's either like you got to watch Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl halftime show or Erica Kirk in TPUSA. And you're like, I don't want either of these options. Like, I just want it to be normal. I want it to go back to the way it used to be. And the truth, it was probably always a little bit of, they were slipping that stuff in there anyways.
Right.
But, that's the same thing. So you want to play a video game and say, I don't want to deal with any of this stuff. I don't want to see
Oh
any of the
yeah,
secret evil messages in this stuff. And you're like, sorry,
yeah.
these people don't stop.
I know. It's insane. Like, um, what sport did you play, by the way?
I played football, and then of course later I got into running and cycling and
Oh,
stuff
okay.
as I got older.
Yeah, nice. I wanted to play. I wanted to letter in like all the sports in high school, and I didn't think about conflicting seasons or anything, you know. So I was like, oh, then they're like, you have to pick one, you know. I'm like,
Hmm.
well, so I started with cross country and then track, and I was pretty good at it. Little did I know the track coach was also the football coach, and he knew I was like the best runner, and he's like, you're not trying out for football. He was also my economics teacher. I'm like, what? Why not? He's like, nah, you're running track. You're not going to play football. If you try out, I'm going to fail you in my class. I'm like,
Well,
well, I guess I'm running track.
hmm.
But anyways, but that basketball was really my love. Like I was set on joining the NBA, you know, like I was good. I was good enough. I was mastered all of the, you know, dunking, shooting, everything. And after I had played for some time, and that's why I joined the Marines, was actually to play on the basketball team and hopefully like boost myself into the NBA. That was my hoop dreams. But I fell out of love with the sport because as I was playing, I noticed more and more people losing their integrity, and there was cheating, and there was flopping, and there was like, you know, it was drama, and it wasn't about sportsmanship, it wasn't about teamwork or anything, and then all the dancing and showing off and celebrations and stuff, and it just, you know, like I grew up during the time of like Barry Sanders is a good
Yeah, Barry
example.
Sanders just score a touchdown, hand the ball
Yeah,
right to the ref.
yeah, that's it. You know, like let's move on. Let's go get another one. Let's do it. And then everyone's like fireworks go off and they're in your face and
They're doing the
you know
worm.
slapping people or I don't know what they do, but it's you know it's kind of lost that spirit of humanity. I don't know how to describe it. So I walked
Right.
away. I just hung up my jersey. I retired. I was like, I'm good. I mastered that sport. Time to move on.
So now what you've mastered is seeing the code in the content. And I think that's really interesting as we were discussing off air now. So the last time I had you on, we were talking about Fallout. So I want to say that this first season just concluded. And so
Hmm.
now we just finished the second season is out and concluded. And it's funny that I kind of got back into video games because I was watching that show and I was like, man, I really need to actually do more research into this because the last season, I don't know if it was so many new elements, but it was more like it made me remember some of this stuff that I even missed in season one. And I was like, dang, this story so specific about you have an apocalypse and then you have a time after this apocalypse and then you have all this steampunk technology. You have these factions going to find the pre-war relics of the Antiquitech, if you will,
Yeah.
and this idea that there's people that are really naive about this time, and there's this other group of people who are obviously just, I don't know, it's all about survival, so they'll do anything. You know, there's like the faction that's on the earth. You have the very naive people that were in the bunkers or the vaults.
Yeah.
And then you have these secret societies that are going to try to collect the relics. And then you have these kind of wicked, what you would say is the merchants who are
Hmm.
the ones who are really behind all this stuff. And then there's just, I don't know, that stuff. I was just like, this seems so real to me. Like this seems like
Yeah.
this could not just have been all made up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it Fallout especially is just such a good quintessential example of real life reflected back through video games and then of subsequently the TV show and stuff. But like, so for people who are watching who are not familiar with Fallout, it's essentially like the major corporations of the world decide the ultimate way to make the most money and get the most value is to start the apocalypse themselves and to like drop the bombs, drop the atomic bombs on Earth or whatever. And before they do that, since they know ahead of time the apocalypse is coming, they sell these underground vaults and bunkers or whatever to the mega rich. And then they sell it, and this is how they present it. They're like, listen, not only are you going to like make a lot of money by controlling your vault or whatever, the world's going to be ending on the surface, and when you come out, you'll be in charge of the world. You'll recreate it however you want, but in your vault, you'll all be having babies the whole time. You'll be in charge. You get to establish what is considered normal in your vault, and then go release that into the surface world when you guys come up to the top. So you can be like literal rulers of the earth, like shaping it and conforming it to your own ideals and your own, senses of morality or morbid, weird desires or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So each vault was taken over by a corporation, and each one was kind of its own little science experiment on like, so how do you think the world should be run?
Mm-hmm.
So do that in your vault. So when, after this time, when we repopulate the earth, that will be what you'll try to do. You'll recreate that on the surface again. And I remember one of the lines, I think it was in the first season, I think one of the main guys who was behind the Vault Tech Corporation, who was in charge of like the vaults and all the things that come after that, he was saying the ultimate weapon is time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically like, we're going to wait this out until everybody on the surface is gone. So when we start over, we are starting over with a blank slate. And it just seems, just that idea just really was tripping me out. And I think the thing that was tripping me out when I was kind of playing this game, Gears of War, and some of these other games like that. So they were doing all these kind of mad science experiments in the vaults. And what they were doing was they were trying to get people used to radiation. And then they were trying to find, like, they're experimenting on people.
Yeah.
Because they were going to have to deal with that. And that's pretty much what they kind of show in Gears of War, that there's this emulsion. It's inside the earth. And they were trying they were trying to find ways for people to basically the immunity to it, or try to get people to make these kind of superhuman people that could handle it. And then, of course, what happens is the unintended consequences. You get these abominations. Mutants? You get like abominations. You get weird things that were never meant to exist. Mm-hmm. And I started to connect that. Like, what if this is not total fiction? And what if that's kind of where you get this idea now of like these gray alien beings?
Yeah.
They're like, are these genetic experiments? I mean, they could just be, a lot of it could just be fake and just made up. But I mean, but if they do exist, it's more likely that they were created by men than they were, then they came from other planets or something like that.
Yeah, so that's what I was, as you were talking, because I don't remember playing Gears of War. I might check it out now, but as you were talking, I'm thinking, I want to ask him, like, are there mutants in this game? Are there humanoid, weird, monstrous, human-looking people or whatever? Because that tends to be the trend that I see as well. In Fallout, they have them. They're called super mutants, and they're trying to design, super soldiers or whatever. They're humans, but they're mutated, so they have super strength and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I see the same type of thing, and I see the relationship, because I'm studying, before I even play this game, or before I even knew about that, I'm studying the Dark Ages, and a part of the Dark Ages is these legendary tribes of humanoids that are, there's a whole headless tribe, there's a whole one-footed tribe, there's a whole dog-faced tribe, there's all these, and it's not anomalies like one guy had this disease or whatever. It's an entire nation of people that were known,
right?
And a whole tribe of people that all have the same genetic like mutation or whatever, and oftentimes they're considered to be have super strength, like Saint Christopher was considered to have super strength.
I was saying, it's funny. I was just talking about this with a friend. The mythologies about Saint Christopher are very odd because he's depicted with the dog face in a lot of them. But then there's other mythologies that he was just a giant.
Yeah.
He bore Christ across a river.
Right. So like you were saying earlier, sometimes it's both, right?
He's a giant dog-headed man.
Yeah. The dog-headed people were oftentimes described as being gigantic compared to like everybody else. That they were wild men, kind of like a Chewbacca looking people. So my
Right.
theory on that actually is that it's I just forgot the name of it, but it's a genetic disease where people just grow hair all over the place.
We should add Brian on
They
here. Brian's talked about all that stuff.
they call
He's
it
way
werewolf
into that.
disease or whatever.
Yeah, because he's shown all the pictures like historically of these people, even still today, like a man who's got like these horns growing out of his head and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They still do that. So that comes back to the biblical quote where it talks about the camp of the saints. Because I'm always talking about, like, I think the camp of the saints personally is at the North Pole, the circular land, that people have seen on the ancient maps. You know what I'm talking about? So to me, that's the original Holy Land. And if it is, and the people encompass the camp of the saints, or the armies, of the earth encompass the camp of the saints, and Gog and Magog and all that, and then fire comes down to destroy them, etc. It also goes on to talk about this in Revelation, where it says outside of the city is where the abominations are, where the dogs live, right? And it literally calls them dogs. You know, could it be symbolic? Yeah. Could it be literal, like dog people? I think so. Because here's my theory on this. So traditionally, the Garden of Eden has the fiery sword that turns every which way. There is something acting as a wall or a blocker to Eden itself, physically, as actual place. There's some sort of fiery sword that is guarding the way into the Garden of Eden. So I suppose that the Garden of Eden is at the North Pole in that circular land. And I also believe that there's a plasma sheath that goes up and around the Garden of Eden like a dome, and that it's moving in a current around it. But my point for saying that is that if this is true, let's just, as a thought experiment, say that the Garden of Eden was circular and it had this plasma dome around it for whatever reason. What would happen scientifically is the plasma that's spinning around causes what's known as synchrotron radiation. It throws outward X-rays and radioactive radiation, basically. So anyone that would live outside of that area, or outside of the camp of the saints, or outside of the Garden of Eden or New Jerusalem or whatever, would be exposed to high doses of radiation, and also, possibly mutations as well. But at the same time, if the atmosphere was electrically amplified, it would cause their collagen and their elastin, their cellular structure, to regenerate. So they wouldn't die from radiation sickness or poison. They would constantly be regenerating, but they would regenerate mutated cells. So they would live a very long time, but they would just grow to be abominations, and that's how they would continue to, and then they would have nation after nation, or tribe after tribe, of just that particular genetic mutation.
You know what's interesting you say about that? I found this. I saw somebody post this. Do you know the YouTuber? I think his name is The Donut or something like that?
Yeah. He's on my show one time.
Okay, he posted this because, lots of people who are like us, we look for the symbolism in like the Super Bowl halftime show or the opening ceremony to the Olympics. And so he posted this. Have you seen this? So this was like the stage for the Olympics.
Oh, sweet. No way.
Yeah, and you see it does kind of have that vibe of
the
4 rivers, and then even you have like a vortex in the middle over here.
Oh, yeah. That's so interesting. Oh, high five to Donut too.
Yeah,
dang, that's a good one. I've never, I didn't watch the Olympics because I don't watch TV or anything. But I love it when people point out all the ritualistic things and symbolic rituals that they're doing,
Yeah, that's a good call, because I was watching the ceremony and I saw that and I wasn't really sure exactly what I was looking at. So I saw that and I didn't catch the connection with Hyperborea and the North Pole.
Yeah. So that's one of my theories, is that like exactly like in Fallout, how there's the corporations that want to take over the world. So my theory in short, and it all goes back to Tartaria, it goes back to Antiquitech and all of this stuff. For me, that land at the North Pole is the place of emergence, that people come up from within the earth and they emerge there. And anytime the sky opens up, I think there's a dome, I think there's a firmament. When the firmament opens up, um, the whoever comes into our world from other worlds or other places or the heavens or whatever, whether people see them as angelic or demonic or humanoid or whatever, or alien, they come straight down and they would naturally land in the middle of the world. And in the middle of the world is, on these ancient maps from the Dark Ages, Mount Meru, aka Rupus Nigra, which is this high and lofty mountain. And that would be akin to this mountain of meeting, the meeting place of the mountain of the gods, the mountain of the angels, the mountain like Mount Olympus type of a thing. And so the people that live in Eden or in Hyperborea or in Atlantis or whatever, to me, they're all the same. The conditions are just right there so that their lifespans are extended. So they live for just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And at the same time, they're acquiring knowledge just through experience. They don't even have to be mathematicians or teachers or scientists or philosophers, just living life. Just going about your life living for 500 years. Think about how much more intelligent you would just be naturally.
Right.
So these people are expelled from the garden or from that land due to cataclysm. And when they go about to the Southlands, to the outer worlds or to the outer continents or whatever, they become nomadic because there's already survivors out there who've been out there for some time. They don't live as long though, and they're smaller in stature and they don't live as long. So these people that come from Hyperborea, from the North Land, they come out, they become nomadic, and then they start integrating themselves amongst all these societies, and they're using their superior, I'll say, intellect and wit and stuff to come up in the world, and they start trading knowledge and information and how to do things and stuff for actual things of value, and then they start banking systems, and the next thing you know, they're BlackRock, the people from the BlackRock.
Yeah, you know what's funny is you say that. I'm sure you probably looked into Tolkien.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So in the story of like the Silmarillion, and obviously the Lord of the Rings altogether, there's the island city of Numenor.
Yes.
And so Numenor is these people who are giants, right? And they live to be about 1,000 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it really struck me when I was watching The Rings of Power, because I didn't know all the other mythologies in the Tolkien mythos. But I was really struck when they go in and it's Sauron is pretending to be a man, right? And he's going in there and he's going in with Gadriel, the elf. And he's like, they're going into the city. And of course, it's like the most immaculate old world looking city you can imagine, like a perfect place. And he says, when did men like me build a place like this? And then she's like, men like you didn't build this place. Mm-hmm. And it was something about that the people from Numenor fought on side of, the good against Morgoth. And they were gifted this island city and long life and all the qualities to be a superior person. And so I never realized this in like the regular Lord of the Rings story, is that Aragorn was a descendant of the Numenorians. And I was watching the extended versions again. And so at one point, I forgot the woman's name, but she was, the one that's kind of has the hots for Aragorn.
Yeah.
But, he's already given himself over to the elf woman.
Yeah.
And there's a conversation in the extended version, it's not in the regular version, that they make a point to say that he's 87 years old in the Lord of the Rings.
Really?
Yeah, so Aragorn is he's a descendant of the Numenorians.
Yeah.
And so I think in the
Longer
books
lifespan.
he's like 6'6". Yeah, he ages different.
Oh, okay.
And he's really intelligent.
Now that starts to make sense, especially why they want him to be the king so bad and stuff.
Right. Well, it's like this. It kind of seems like this story about there's the descendants who have the right bloodline,
right? Yeah,
where they have the divine right to rule over places. It's not just being related to the kings, because the kings were all related to these higher entities.
Yeah,
and that's a story that is continued on. I believe that that's actually something that the elites believe in.
You know what? One of my favorite parts of the the whole lore to Tolkien's world or whatever was, especially getting back further like towards the Silmarillion, was that this blew my mind. There was a time I forgot how he describes it. It's something like the time when the world turned over or something like that. But
When he
the
turned
world
into a
used to
sphere?
be, it used to be flat.
He turned into a
And then at
sphere.
some point it turned into a sphere, a globe Earth or whatever. And I'm like,
So
that's
weird.
awesome.
That's such a weird thing to put into your
What a
mythology,
strange
right?
thing. It's so unnecessary.
Yeah, it's almost like that. That is that fiction. I mean, that sounds like that if it's still flat,
Right.
which we believe biblically it is,
Right.
that it's almost like, did it actually turn into a sphere? Because what does that even look like? I'm trying to even picture like in this world how that even
Right.
works.
Oh, you know what else is interesting? So I've looked at the map, like the whole map of the whole world or whatever, and it's so interesting because like if you put everything on the map across time or whatever, they had the two trees, just like how they showed in the Rings
Right?
of
Yeah.
Power.
Yeah. That wasn't that something that Morgoth did? He was cutting down like the original trees that
Yeah.
gave light and life.
Yes. So that's the thing. Those trees were light. They were light trees.
Hmm.
They lit up the world. One was like a tree of the moon. One was like a tree of the sun. But they were these pillars of light, and the people, called
That
trees
sounds
or
very
whatever.
Freemasonry if you really think about it. Like one tree, it's like
I
one
think it's the
column.
same. Yes, I think it's
Yeah.
the same exact thing. There's the two columns. There's the two pillars. So I have a theory that around that island that I was talking about, that I think is the Garden of Eden and stuff, I believe that there's so I think that volcanic activity is very much important and related. So that mountain in the middle of that island is Rupus Nigra, it's called on the map. I think it's a volcano. I think it's the largest volcano on Earth, and it's a huge opening in the Earth. And when our atmosphere depressurizes, which I think happens, um, the oh, it's my alarm. It's time for our podcast. But the inner Earth will depressurize subsequently as well. So all the gases rush up through the volcanoes and caves and stuff, and they ionize. Those gases ionize through the static electricity and friction and stuff, and they shoot up beams and pillars of light that come up out of these volcanoes. And now I'm thinking of the Rings of Power and the whole volcano scene and all that stuff,
Or
and then
even that one scene I
triggering
want to
it.
say in Return of the King, where right before the armies of was it Mordor started to come out, and that blue pillar of light comes
Yes.
straight up.
Yeah, and there was all that weird green light and stuff like that. I think the green light, especially with the association with Aurora Borealis and the Emerald City, Oz, all that stuff. The green light, it has to do with those types of gases that are in that area and how they ionize. And mostly it's oxygen, I think, that ionizes. But it depends on the level, like the altitude of it, whether or not it's red or green or purple or whatever. But yeah, that's exactly a good example. Is the pillar of light that shoots up out of that area from the underworld. And I see that a lot when I'm watching movies, and you always have like this beam of light. Like Marvel has it all the time
Yeah,
in all their
they
movies.
have it in the first Avengers movie, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they have this pillar of light. There it is. And then the two tower symbolism, like there's these two. Anyways, my theory is that there are these mountains which are volcanic. They're volcanic mountains. They're holes in the earth, okay? And they shoot out every other cycle when the gases erupt and they ionize. They shoot out light. That's why they're called freaking pyramids as well.
Mhm.
Pyramid means fire inside or light
Of course,
inside.
that it's funny how if you see kind of these idea that there was this lost technology of like ancient Egypt, and what you often see with the pyramids is that they have the capstone is this gleaming thing and it's shooting a light straight
Yeah.
up, and including if you go to Vegas, that's what they have at the Luxor.
Mm-hmm. Which is a black pyramid too, which is reminiscent of Rupus
The Rupus
Nigra,
Nigra.
the black rock, as well. But yeah, so the two pillars thing, I think that the North Pole kind of works as a battery for our world. That it sort of works as like an energetic source, similar to a cellular structure of a battery. So like an electrolytic cell or
Kind of like the
a
idea that
galvanic
it's
cell.
the realm is a toroidal field, right?
Yeah. So you would have a positive side and a negative side. So there may be two mountains on either side, one acting positive, one acting negative of the battery, we'll say, right? An anode and a cathode mountain. And if that's true, and they're both emitting light or whatever, and one light would probably be stronger than the other one or whatever, then I see like this correlation between having there's always like these like two witnesses on either side of like a central source. Jesus is the ultimate example of that, whether it be the transfiguration and the two mountains and Moses and Elijah, or the
Mm-hmm.
two thieves on the cross next to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tolkien had his two pillars, his two trees of light or whatever that were actual light. And then like you have the association with like these what they call them, like not trolls but ogres or whatever in the Lord of the Rings.
The orcs.
Yeah, the orcs. Orc is basically ogre too. Like that's basically another way of
Mm-hmm.
saying ogre.
Well, there's like variations of these demonic creatures, right? Like
Yeah.
some of them are big and some of them are not, and some of them are used to be elves. Some of them were
Yeah.
mixed with men, I think.
But so if you look at like I like that's why I liked watching the Rings of Power, because it gives us a little bit of backstory
Mm-hmm.
on the Uruk-hai and their origins and their beginning and stuff and how they first came about. But if you look at the orcs in general, without the anomalous exceptions, they're this like pasty gray color. There's white grayish kind of a color, you know what I mean, in general.
They're like the locusts from that game Gears of War.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that game out. But my point is that I'm making is they appear alien. You know what I mean? They have like if you think about aliens, there's the grays or whatever that come to mind, and the gray skin and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about a concept on my channel that I call phantazoids, and for me, phantazoids are otherworldly creatures that come into our world, either from below, from the hollow earth, or from above, outside of the dome. And they come into this world, physical creatures like animals or humanoids or whatever. And oftentimes I found across the board, when they come down from above, they tend to be albino. They tend to be white or like a gray and off gray. Sometimes they're depicted as slimy, like in movies, like sort of a shiny, shimmering gray looking.
Kind of like Prometheus, the engineers.
Yes, exactly. Exactly like that. So my theory on that is because if they come from beyond the dome, I believe that the sun is inside of the dome. So the sun is what helps us to change color and our melanin and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Starts kicking in. We get tan and stuff. But when you live out there beyond the sun, then I would expect people to be more albino or pasty white or gray or whatever looking.
Certainly, if you lived under the earth too. That's kind of like that. I bring that up all the time. Is that movie The Time Machine?
Yes.
Where those people, well, they used to be people, in the story of The Time Machine, when they go way into the future, there's some kind of cataclysm involving the moon. Like the moon is going to converge with the earth, and so they go
up.
Oh, okay, maybe that's what it is. So then they go under.
Yes.
And they lived so long under. And again, it was funny, like almost just like these other games, like Fallout, that they had a goal that they were going to eventually resurface and they were going to live back on the earth when it was inhabitable.
Mm-hmm.
But then they couldn't, because they were forever changed in all the genetic mutation that happened inside the earth.
They became cannibalistic, and the guy with the mental powers, Jeremy Irons, was controlling them. And he was very pasty, pale, white.
And
looking.
He was like reptilian, like he had like spine, like he had these kind of sharp things sticking out of his spine. Yeah. But then he created this race of almost like Nephilim creatures to go get them food, and they would pop up and they would steal humans.
Yes.
So they could eat them.
And they were like aliens, but they came from inside the earth instead of from above. So check this out. You want to see? I'm so excited about my newest theory. You want to hear it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so because you mentioned Time Machine and you mentioned something was happening with the moon, right?
Mm-hmm.
I see a strong correlation. I'm like, the moon keeps coming up in my research, and let me put this together for you, okay? Because this is so interesting. Just how we talk about video games and we see certain similarities in the movies and the same concepts over and over, like mutants or, you know what I mean, radiation and all those same similar concepts keep appearing. I keep seeing the concept of the moon breaking and the moon splitting and the moon blowing up, or you know what I mean, something happening to the moon.
Yeah, wasn't there a movie recently about the moon crashing into Earth or something?
Yeah, Moonfall.
Okay, Moonfall. Yeah, okay, there you
Yes,
go.
exactly. This is so interesting to me. So in Time Machine, the guy goes way into the future. He looks up. And he's like, "What happened?" And he's like, "It was us. We did that. You know, they were mining on the moon and they blew it up or whatever, right?" And now in real life, they're doing these moon missions once more, where they're trying to get up there, and this whole concept. Just I'm gonna put two separate, seemingly separate things together now. So there's this new viral video sensation topic about how Project Anchor and NASA and the Earth's gonna lose gravity for 7 seconds or whatever. Have you heard of this?
I was watching a little bit of your video. I was listening to a little
Oh,
bit.
okay.
I hadn't heard of it before, but I'd heard the name Project Anchor.
Yes. So I looked up documents to see if I could actually find NASA documents about, Project Anchor, and I come across Anchor projects from NASA where they build these special lunar module things to drill into the moon and anchor this module thing into the moon. I'm like, why would you need to anchor anything into the moon? There's no wind or there's nothing like what's going to
Right.
move it. There's no moon quakes that I'm aware of. I don't know.
Unless they open the studio door and the wind rushes in.
Yes. So they actually have anchors and stuff that they're building to drill into the moon. And I'm like, they want to drill into the moon. That reminded me of Time Machine. And like they were mining on the moon, drilling on the moon or whatever. So personally, I think the moon that we all are familiar with is actually just a light in the sky, that it's a luminary and that it's not a physical object.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
No, I think that makes sense. I think that one of the biggest anomalies with the moon is that idea when sometimes you can see a star through it.
Yes.
Right? Like, like the flags. I'm not sure which countries have the flag to depict like a crescent moon with this star like in the middle of it.
Yes.
But that's like a real phenomenon that happens. So how could that happen if there's a full moon that we're just not seeing? Either the star is in front of the moon or the moon is literally disappears and is transparent.
It's complicated, bro. Clearly, you haven't gone to college and got the degree. And
oh, it's refraction, I'm sure. Just like when you see like a senilian eclipse, it's just like the light is doing all this stuff.
There's a dark hole. There's a black hole, and E = mc squared, and so you can see the star right through the moon.
Because math. Yeah,
yes.
Math I don't understand. But yeah, all we know is the phenomenon is interesting. Yeah, that's the exact same thing when they talk about the senilian eclipse, which the scientists call the impossible eclipse, because both the sun and the moon are visible in the sky at the same time, and yet there is a lunar eclipse, which shouldn't really make sense, because if the sun is casting the Earth's shadow onto the moon, well then, how can we see them both at the same time? The truth is you can't, because the light's bending and they're not really actually there.
Have you ever heard of Project Moonblink?
I haven't.
Another NASA project where so many astronomers started reporting strange lights on the moon and weird anomalies. People were looking through telescopes and seeing domes where there used to be craters. People were seeing not just flashes of light, but like moving lights, almost like electricity or something on the moon. And so NASA asked for the help of your average person. They put out the call to the population. They said, hey, we want you to record whatever you find. And then they started a whole project called Project Moonblink, where they would record all of these anomalous, weird instances of people seeing strange things on the moon. This was, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 years ago or something. I can't remember when. But anyways, there were so many people were seeing weird things on the moon. And this just started happening again recently, like last year, I think. People were witnessing weird lights on the moon, flashes and stuff. And now, the media is trying to explain it like, oh, it's outgassing and the gas is reflecting the sunlight and it's really bright. And they actually have to come up with explanations for this, But they have Project Moonblink. They also have Project A119. That one's super interesting. Are you looking stuff up right now?
I was just looking up. I was trying to show people with like a moon flag, like these.
Oh, yeah, with the star inside of it.
So you got that one.
Mm-hmm.
This one right here. I'm not exactly sure what all the countries are, but yeah, like that should not be possible. But that's actually a real phenomenon that happens.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that myself one time. And I tried to like I ran inside to post it, and I'm like, if you're go outside right now and go look at the moon. Tell me if you see a star through it, you know? But
No,
yeah,
it's
so
interesting. What's the interesting too is the correlation when we're talking about, the sacred pillars. You have one that represents the sun and the other one that represents the moon. And so, in the mythologies, you have like Apollo, who would be the sun god, the masculine energy, and then you have his sister is Artemis, which would be the feminine, divine feminine. And so there's something about the moon and, like how women get on their cycles a lot of times that are correlate with the moon cycles.
right, yeah.
It is something really interesting about the moon that there is this feminine energy. And I think it's interesting again that the original moon mission was called Apollo and now it's called Artemis.
Yes. No, I totally agree. So the Artemis thing is really interesting. There was the Temple of Artemis, in Turkey, I think.
Yeah,
think it's
it was
Turkey.
in Ephesus.
Yes, and that same temple sank underground, and people show that picture all the time when they're showing the mud flood examples.
Mhm.
You see those huge pillars going 60 feet straight down into the earth, just covered in earth. And Artemis
And
is
historically, I want to say it's even biblically that when Paul is preaching in that area and everyone's selling all these idols to the goddess Artemis, it mentions like I think some Jews and some other people are trying to stir people up against Paul. He's gonna wreck your business talking about this other god, and they're like, "Don't worry about it. Isn't Artemis still the goddess?" And it was also saying that there was some kind of relic in the temple of Artemis that was some kind of a thing that fell from the heavens
oh
that was
yeah,
cast down by Zeus.
yes. Okay, so I think that's super interesting. So a part of my whole theory or whatever, like I mentioned, Project A119. In short, that was Russia and the United States planning to blow up the moon with nuclear bombs. And it was like literally they were going to try to blow up the moon.
Well, and what was the purpose of this?
Officially to show a show of force. They just wanted to show force to the rest of the world that they could do that. That's
Be
their
like, that's
official
pretty
explanation.
messed up.
Now
It's
check
like,
this out. Guess who was an advisor? Guess who was helping them to do this? None other than Carl Sagan. He's actually the one that leaked this information on accident when people were, trying to do a documentary about Carl Sagan, and he started talking about this top secret government project that he's involved with NASA and stuff. But Carl Sagan was involved. They were going to try to blow up the moon, and then it came down to the decision: how should they present this to the people? Should we just tell them we're going to blow up the moon? Or should we present it as an exploration of the moon and we'll land there and we'll explore it? So they went with landing on the moon instead of blowing up the moon.
That seems like a lot more palatable. It's like, you're going to do what? Aren't these the people who believe that the moon controls the tides and everything?
Yes.
Wouldn't that mess everything up?
Oh my God. These are supposed to be the cream of the crop, intelligent mental people on Earth, all the best of the best of the best, working for NASA, etc. And they want to go blow up the moon and not think about any of the implications, none of the dominoes that's going to topple over next, right? But officially, they were like, well, maybe it's a bad idea. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to land on it instead. I think otherwise. I think that they're still going to try to blow up the moon. I think because here, let me explain. There's the moon, which is the luminary, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a source to that projection,
right,
to that image. And that source to me is the firmament, which is the dome above us. So light passes through the dome, which I think personally is made out of ice because it acts like a lens, because the gases freeze or whatever. But let's say it's the firmament. That means that when they're talking about going to the moon, which is the light, they're actually talking about going to the dome or to the firmament to blow up the sky to cause a small
Isn't that like
apocalyptic event.
Operation Fishbowl?
It's exactly like that. During the Cold War, like the dome being ice or cold, or maybe a reference to going to war against the dome, or that's where God lives. That's the heavens. You know what I mean? Up there. So
breaking the glass ceiling, like Hillary Clinton once said.
Yes, breaking the glass ceiling. So here's my theory is that they're going to try to put explosives, anchor onto the moon or whatever, drill onto it, and blow up the weakest point, which I believe to be I think that the firmament is dome shaped above us, but I think that there's a portion at the top that droops downward like a bowl, and I call that the apex dome. And I believe every once in a while people can actually see that object up there in the sky. But I think that they're going to put bombs all the way around it. In Project A119, they were going to put their bombs around the terminator of the moon, which to us would be the edge of the moon's face on a full moon, all the way around, which would correlate to the circle of the apex dome all the way around it. So let's say they do this, right? Let's suppose, just for a moment, as a thought experiment, that there is a dome above us, that there is a weak point on that dome, that it casts its own projection into the sky, and we call that the moon, and they plan on blowing up the dome for a couple of reasons. One, to escape this world, to get into heaven or whatever. Two, to minimize the actual apocalypse when it happens and the atmosphere depressurizes. You let out a little bit of pressure now, and not so much pressure releases next time, and so it's not as devastating. So if they blow up the thing that causes the projection of the moon, guess what people will see when they look at the moon? They will see the moon crack in half. They will see the moon blow up. They'll see the moon explode or whatever, because it's just projecting the dome or the firmament above us. That's my theory.
That's interesting. I know that I want to say that Dave Weiss did an experiment once where he was kind of showing, like, I think he was talking about eclipses again. I think he was showing was like a flashlight through like a paper towel, and so it's like the light, like the sun that we see might not be actually, again, another physical object. I mean, because the way that the Bible describes it is they're lights in the skies, they're luminaries. So like, where is the source coming from for this light?
Yeah.
And so it makes sense to me that the moon could be something similar. But that is weird. That it makes sense a little bit when you see like the rockets and the things that do look like they hit some kind of a solid structure.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, it seems the whole idea that you could send a rocket up and then you'd get this thing that would pop off of it and then they would go fly to the moon with it. It's almost like they're shooting missiles at the sky.
Yes.
You know
I
what I mean?
Right?
Like, it seems like there's a lot going on that they could separate this thing or separate some kind of space shuttle off this rocket, when it's like, really, this thing is a giant missile. It doesn't seem like you could really.
Yes, and also not just the NASA ones with the astronauts, but all of these what do you call them, Starlink or whatever, SpaceX Starlink things that are blowing up right now. Like they keep blowing up in the sky. They're exploding. Like, how is a satellite, a machine up in the sky, exploding into this magnificent display? Like every day they say there's like 2 that fall back down to Earth now. There's like 2 Starlink satellites every day.
Aren't they all? They're all up on balloons, aren't they? They're just like this.
I don't know.
They're like little satelloons.
Maybe. I don't know. But so that apex dome thing, I wanted to make a correlation with New Jerusalem, actually. So in the Bible, it talks about how New Jerusalem descends from the heavens, from the sky. Many people believe it's a cube because of the dimensions that are given, because it's the same in all dimensions. But a dome is also the same in all dimensions or whatever. So if you have this portion of the sky itself that's a dome shape and it blows off and it falls down or whatever, it's all the same dimensions in a dome as it is in a cube. And so they might be trying to like trigger, certain biblical events or something.
I mean, I don't put it past them. I mean, I think that the interesting part about that whole concept, though, is that in these shows and in these video games, you have seems one constant is that this apocalypse is brought on by the people. So the unintended consequences of what they're actually trying to do. And these people have a backstop and they've got a plan. And it typically involves them trying to ride out whatever they cause under the surface of the earth. And so I was telling you that just like the game Fallout and the TV show, there was a show that me and my buddy Aaron have been talking about. It's called Paradise on YouTube, or no, Paradise on Hulu. And this is kind of more realistic take on it. But there's some kind of super volcano that erupts in the Arctic or the Antarctic, somewhere in Antarctica, and it triggers all these tsunamis. And then when that happens, the governments of the world are worried about resources. So they start to fire off their nukes against each other. So then they really wreck the place at the same time. So it's like it's a natural phenomenon that happens, but it's exacerbated by the actions of men.
And another volcano.
Another volcano. It's funny, we were just talking about, so I recorded a podcast on this over the weekend, and there is the story of Pompeii and Mount Vesuvius, but there was another Roman town that was very close there. I want to say it was called Herculean was the place called, and it was also very close to Pompeii. And man, what it describes when, what historically was described when Mount Vesuvius erupted, if you read Revelation chapter 9 and listen to the description of it, about when the angel's given the key to the bottomless pit and he opens it up and there's dark black smoke that comes out, like fire, like from a furnace, and it blackens the sky.
Yes.
I'm like, dang, that sounds exactly like what Revelation 9 is describing.
It sure does. It sure does. The volcanoes, I feel, are a huge major piece of, end times prophecy and stuff like that. Especially remember I was saying there's these different mountains in the Arctic or whatever. In the book of Revelation, which all throughout it is, very symbolic and poetically written.
A lot of it is, I wouldn't say it's allegorical, but it's symbolic. The vision that's being seen. It's like John describing a dream, understanding that your dream doesn't necessarily correlate with exactly how events play out on the earth.
Yes. Well, there's one part in particular, though, where he slams on the brakes to let the reader know, I know exactly what this is, and I'm going to tell you. And he's talking about the beast that rises up out of the ocean. And he says, I think something along the lines of this requires wisdom or something. But he says the 7 heads of this beast are 7 mountains.
Mm-hmm.
They're mountains, period. That's what they are. So I know that one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He comes right out and tells you.
Yeah.
So,
mm-hmm.
But yeah, the volcanoes keep popping up too in my research. So I just decoded Night at the Museum or whatever, and they had this huge picture of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania in Africa. And I'm like, wow. So I started researching Mount Kilimanjaro. It's the largest freestanding volcano on Earth, largest freestanding mountain on Earth in the heart of Africa in Tanzania, right by Lake Victoria, largest freshwater lake. And then there's other volcanoes in the area too. One is literally called Mount Meru, which is interesting.
Oh, that is interesting.
The other volcano has the largest caldera on Earth of those that are above the water. This thing's 12 miles wide or something like that. I mean, if you look at a picture, you just think it's just a circular mountain range.
What's that one called?
The one with the caldera?
Yeah.
Dude, honestly, I can't remember because it's a super African language. It's like Mount Nugu Mom Papao or something. But if you just type in largest crater, on Earth, then it should pop up. It's in Tanzania. But I came across, I was researching craters and the Garden of Eden being a crater. I was watching the movie Greenland Part 2, the sequel, where they're trying to get to this crater of life or whatever, when there's radiation everywhere in the post-apocalypse. Spoiler alert, sorry, but, a meteor, a comet hits the Earth in the movie Greenland, and there's all this radiation for some reason. Yeah, look at that.
Is that filled in by water?
I think there's water in the middle. There's a lake or something in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just lush vegetation. There's land all over the place, and it filled in. Look at see the mountain range in the background?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the top of the volcano.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, there's animals. It's a whole world inside of this thing. So one of my theories is that, remember how I said I think that the inner Earth depressurizes as well as up here? So I believe that the volcanoes go through 2 cycles. One cycle that we're in now where they're destructive and they have molten metals mixed with earth, and we call that lava, and it's a dangerous place to be. It's very hot. There's radiation and stuff. But after the inner Earth depressurizes and it blows out all of that lava and all that stuff, it's replaced by cold plasmas. That's Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool.
But it's replaced by cold plasmas, and those cold plasmas have all these health benefits that allow people to live longer, and they eradicate disease. They're antibacterial, antimicrobial, stuff like that. And people flock to volcanoes to live there. And it's possible, if there's actually citizens inside of the earth, gigantic animals and stuff, even seeds and stuff that might blow out during this depressurization, that these are sources of life, centers of life during these times. And so that the volcanoes are places of power where people gather around. And that explains why people today are living on and around active volcanoes. It doesn't make any kind of sense why anyone would want to do that, unless
Yeah, it seems
at
like
some point
bad.
in the
It
past,
seems like not well thought out. Like the planning is not well founded
yes,
to build your city right next
unless
to one.
there is a reason, and unless maybe volcanoes weren't always as destructive as we think that they were.
What if it's has something to do with the times of the Romans? What if they were tapping into like some kind of geothermal power?
Yeah. And maybe they're trying to abuse that power, and maybe they kind of triggered something. Like this is the story of Atlantis,
Right? Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know if you looked this up or if you heard this before, but some people might say, how come there's no volcanoes in the Bible? Well, historically, the very first volcano that ever erupted was Mount Vesuvius.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, like I mean, the point is it's not saying necessarily that it's the first one that ever happened, but that's the first one that was ever written about.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, that's pretty shocking to me. Is
Yeah.
like that's like a newer phenomenon. It's like that maybe there was a situation where they didn't really know what these things were. And I thought it was interesting, like biblically. So the Bible describes the flood as obviously the firmament opening up and then water coming down. But then the fountains of the deep opened up at the same time. So when
Right.
Peter describes the coming cataclysm, he's saying that fire stored up in the firmament. But what if it was something similar where not only did fire come down, but fire came up, just like the
Yes.
fountains of different types of fountains were opened up.
Right, yeah. So I think that like when the inner earth depressurizes, it's pushing all the pressure upwards, and so it's pushing the water reservoirs and everything upwards. So you'll have explosions of water. It's pushing all the gases up, so you have explosions of ionized gases and stuff. Um, Damn, you mentioned something I was going to comment about. I just had a brain fart.
No, it's all right.
Dang
I want to
it.
ask you about something. I want to go back to something we talked about earlier, though, about so in the game Fallout, they are trying to introduce radiation to people to get them to be resistant to it.
Yes.
And so this, again, creates mutation, abominations.
Right.
And then so that's exactly, well, not exactly, but very close to that story in Gears of War, is that there's this valuable resource, this emulsion, and they try to make people resistant to it. And then they eventually they found creatures in the earth that are resistant to it, and then they combine them, and that's where you kind of get the bad guy in the game, the locust. But to go to the comic books, that's pretty much the story of the X-Men, is that the X-Men were supposedly children of the atom, right? So like when they started testing nuclear bombs and nuclear power, that radiation caused these people, their cells, to mutate, and they got superpowers.
Yeah. Yes.
And so it's funny. It's kind of funny that like Candace Owens is her rabbit hole going down, looking into TPUSA and Charlie Kirk and all this stuff, led her to things like Project Looking Glass, which is some kind of CIA thing where they were using kids, I believe, to astral project and spying, like remote viewing and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But she was discussing how Charlie Kirk was like one of these kids who was marked early on, and he went to quote unquote like an X-Men school. And I was like, I thought that's really interesting. It's like that. Yeah, I mean, these stories are just so similar, and they repeat over and over again. It's like, were they finding kids that they could test some things out on? You know what I mean? Like if they had some kind of substance, radiation, or something else.
That makes sense to me, and I see that. I saw you see that in the not just Stranger Things with 11, but also like the last episode with Vecna and all that, where he's trying to gather up all those kids. You know what I mean? To use them for their power or whatever. And a lot of the kids have untapped potential in these stories, and like they're not really aware of like their abilities or whatever. But the grown-ups recognize it in them, and they have
there's some kind of a test that they've they've been able to mark certain children for maybe it's blood type, maybe it's some kind of aptitude, it's some kind of a spiritual thing. And of course, I think in the show, it's probably more in Stranger Things, it's probably more realistic because it's about traumatized children and
Yeah.
unfortunate children. So whatever they're trying to do to them, but that theme seems to come up over and over again. And what's funny, your theory about kind of this mountain that goes up into the firmament, into this different realm, like it was so weird the way the story went, because I think the way the Stranger Things was originally presented, it made sense to me biblically. It'd be like you have this kind of a dark vibrational realm that's basically here. It's like it's a place like here, but it's, you know, we don't have access to it. And it was only through trauma and some kind of a spiritual encounter that 11 breaks open this portal to this other place. But then in the last season, they shifted the story on its nose, where actually the upside down is this wormhole that goes into, then they show it goes up into the abyss.
Yeah.
But it's funny because it goes up into, well, I guess maybe it doesn't go up because the upside down is down. So maybe the different dimension is from below. It's the abyss is coming up.
Yeah. I kind of liked that they did that too. Because it reminded me when they show you, when they zoom out of our world and then they show you the upside down too, it reminded me of like a toroidal field.
Yes,
you know?
definitely. Exactly. And they were
so
accessing it through like the radio tower.
Yes. So, and that's so interesting too, is these towers that they're using to like communicate to this world above, which to me goes back to NASA. It goes back to like all these skyscrapers where they put antennas on the tops of these skyscrapers. In the movie Oblivion, have you seen that one with Tom Cruise?
I saw it a long time ago. I don't remember it.
Well, he goes to the Empire State Building, but it's like covered almost to the top in mud. It's almost like it sank, into the earth.
Oh, interesting.
And
I gotta watch that again now.
There's this beacon, and they're using this beacon to send a signal up to like these astronauts or whatever. But it's on top of the Empire State Building. That led me down a whole rabbit hole of them putting antennas on the tops of these skyscrapers and using them as natural antennas. Sometimes I believe to try to like point them at the heavens or whatever to maybe talk to inhabitants on possibly the dome or beyond.
I don't know if everybody's really ever looked closely at the spire on the Empire State Building, but it really looks like some serious tech.
Yeah.
Let me see.
They used to have a whole level at the very top that was nothing but radio stations, and they have all these different antennas that go all the way around. And it reminded me of the movie They Live, where they broadcast this signal from the top of the news station from this satellite.
Oh yeah, right, exactly.
That keeps you from seeing the reptilian people or whatever.
Don't tell me that's just a lightning rod.
Not even. Like, look at that. Same thing with the Eiffel Tower, like people say, "Oh, it was just a decoration during the World's Fair." And we discovered that we can use it to broadcast radio signals, it just happens to be perfect for that or whatever.
It's just it's so, I don't know, I just can't believe that that's not technology right there.
Yeah.
Like big time technology.
And in Ghostbusters, they have a similar theme where they had like this skyscraper and it was actually being used as an antenna into like the underworld or whatever.
Right. Yeah. That's, I always quote that, especially when he's bringing out, so Ray's breaking out the blueprints and he's saying that the girders were full of pure selenium, which is interesting. I want to say that's some of the stuff they spray in the sky.
Yeah.
And selenium.
Selene is the goddess of the moon, as another goddess of the moon.
Yeah. And he was saying that this is a spiritual antenna to attract turbulence, or spiritual turbulence or something.
Yes. That movie, that cracks me up so much. Okay, the funniest part in the movie is when they're in the library and Ray's getting all excited about symmetrical book stacking, just like, this whatever of 1812. And he's like, "Yes, Ray, no human would stack books like that."
Yeah, exactly. The movie is actually really brilliant, when, especially knowing kind of what I know now, watching it again, because it's so many references to like real things. He was even talking about, we talked recently about how there's this kind of divine feminine stuff just really just being shoved down our throats. And so you think what you see if you actually read like the mythologies and the, Gozer, I don't think was actually a real entity, but they're basing it off of real entities. And so if you read the story is that Gozer sounds a lot like Apollyon, sounds like Apollo. And so when he finally appears, what Winston Zeddemore says, I thought Gozer was a man. It's like it's whatever it wants to be. But of course, it appears as woman.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when I want to say that, what was it Ghostbusters Afterlife? They show that Gozer a little closer and it looks almost just like the Statue of Liberty. Like it has the same kind of vibe as what that is. And of course, in the second one, the Statue of Liberty breaks free and starts walking around and everything.
And there's a dome of like plasma that goes around that library that they were in, and the Statue of Liberty breaks that dome. So remember earlier I was saying I speculate there's this dome of plasma that goes around the Garden of Eden.
Oh yeah, right? You're absolutely right. Yeah, so where are they at? They're in some kind of museum, and the pink plasma covers it all.
Right.
Yeah, and they're using it, and the torch is smashing into. Oh wow,
it's like the devil, trying to like break back into the Garden of Eden or something.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, but that's crazy too, because like they said in the first one when they're up on top of the skyscraper and they're talking about Gozer, that Gozer appears like however, and then they say she says choose the form of the destroyer, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, that's sort of like the apocalypse, because it's basically an apocalyptic event. Gozer represents the apocalypse, and all the people around the world that witness the apocalypse are going to interpret it and perceive it through their own perception filters. They'll choose the form, they'll name the names, they'll describe it however they described it.
Oh, interesting.
You know what I mean? Like it's up to them. And then in the post-apocalyptic world or whatever,
right? It could be like in to the Greeks, it's Apophis.
Yep.
To the Egyptians, it's Apep. For if you're in India, it's Ketu and Ratu or something like that, right? It's like they all have this mythology about this serpent being that's going to swallow the sun one day.
Yes, which is also interesting too. So the sun, man, I can't remember. You said something earlier that reminded me of the sun. Oh, I remember what I was going to ask you earlier too. Just real quick, did you know in regards to Mount Vesuvius? Okay, I'm just going to tell you. There is only one eyewitness account of that happening. You would think that there would be a lot, There's one, and it happens to be a famous person. It's such an interesting story. But anyways,
so who's the famous person?
What was that guy's name? Pliny, the younger. Pliny the younger.
I knew it was either the elder or the younger as soon as you said
Pliny,
that name.
One of the Plinies, the Pliny family. But well, the story goes he was watching his dad like go to the mountain to like rescue some people he knew or whatever, and then the whole thing of his dad dying or whatever, and he passed that story on. That's the only eyewitness account of that whole mountain blowing up.
Well, you know what? It sounds like, gosh, that's such a weird thing because even again, we showed a video on the last podcast I did, and it was about that turn, I think Herculean, and I want to say it was either 8 to 12 miles from there or 8 to 12 kilometers. So it's not close. But they were saying that it was so hot there that people's brains were being boiled inside their heads. So
I can imagine.
So how close could that person have been to actually witness like what they're talking about? But that's very similar to the same story where, in this community, we often talk about 536 is the year that the sun went dark for 18 months. Mm-hmm. You know that there's only I want to say that there might be 5 accounts of that taking place, but there's only 3 people it's attributed to historians. That's not very many,
right,
for an event like that.
Yeah,
I was just saying, can you imagine if the sun went dark for a week? How many people would write about it today?
Right.
So why is there so few accounts of that?
That's a good point. Or maybe there's few accounts because that led to some sort of cataclysm.
That's basically my feeling is that there would have been a lot of witnesses to that, but they didn't make it out to write about it. And maybe they did write about it but everything was buried afterwards.
Yes. So that's I think we're getting on the same page as these theories, are getting closer and closer too, because I keep going back to like the Dark Ages and the time immediately after the Dark Ages. So I feel like the Dark Ages were more of a golden age than they were a dark age.
Yeah.
Based on my research that I've done into this so far, and they lasted about 1,000 years, and at the end you have like the year 500 all the way up to like 1500 or whatever. Was like they call that the Middle Ages and stuff, and then they have the Age of Exploration, where they're saying that they really need to like send out all of their naval troops and explorers and everything.
Very interesting. I've often commented it's very interesting that everybody in Europe decided that was a good idea to do all at once.
Yeah, because cinnamon,
right? They're looking for those spices.
Cinnamon's good. You need breakfast. Yeah. But that doesn't make a lot of sense unless maybe there was an apocalyptic event and now they're trying to map out the world again, see where everyone stands, who owns what.
That makes sense to me, is that there was the ability to do it around 1500.
Yeah.
There was something limiting them from doing it, because I don't believe for one second that the people who built ancient Rome, built ancient Greece and Persia and the Babylonian Empire, the Phoenicians, don't tell me they could not have sailed over to America back then.
I know, right?
There's just no way. So how did they go so far backwards that they forget everything the Romans did? And even the Vikings historically were great seamen, so they would have been able to sail across the ocean.
Yes. And around the same time, you have the disappearance of major civilizations in other parts of the world.
Right.
That just up and vanished, and the official explanation is they integrated themselves into other cultures or whatever. They just left their whole, you have like temples.
The Anasazi here, this supposedly disappeared like 1,000 years ago, and I want to say it was the Mayan civilization also disappeared at the same time that Gunnar Heinsohn was referencing 536.
Yes.
So there's a collapse there. So, but that almost makes perfect sense that if it was right around 536. Again, we're not saying that's historically like the actual year, but just this certain time where you have this cataclysm that the Mayan and the Anasazi in the Americas disappear at the same time.
Yeah, interesting coincidence. I don't really believe in coincidences personally.
Not like that.
But like back to the sun, disappearing, and there'd be records and stuff, and it seems logical that a strong contender for a possibility is a cataclysmic event, right? That decimates the population or something. I think that there's a back and forth that if the sun can disappear for a long time or go dark, that it can also intensify for some time and get too bright and get brighter and brighter, and therefore it gets hotter and hotter and hotter. And it then, therefore, gains the ability to scorch the earth. And, if people are caught up in that, then people turn to dust. And that's kind of like what I was referencing in my my night at the museum breakdown or whatever. If the exhibits like escaped the museum and the sun came up, they would turn to dust like a vampire, like in the sunlight.
Oh, interesting.
Or whatever. So in the Bible, there's a prophecy that says that the sun in the future will become 7 times brighter, and that the moon would become
it does talk about
brighter.
There's a scorching of the earth.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'll look that up and go ahead.
So one of my theories, I'm keeping my eye on the sun and the moon, all the luminaries actually, just being a sky watcher, because it seems to me that they're getting brighter. It seems to me that they have changed color, that they're going through a color spectrum shift, whereas the sun, many people remember, used to be yellow or even a yellowy orange color a long time ago, decades ago. And now it is like a fluorescent Walmart bright light, up in the sky that's almost unbearable to look at or even to be under. And people are getting sunburned much faster. And there's the push for sunburn these days. I mean, for sunscreen and stuff these days. Mm-hmm. I feel like we're in that time when the sun is transitioning into getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter, just like as was predicted in the Old Testament. And if it's getting hotter and hotter, that's also getting brighter and brighter, which necessitates a color change when we're talking about light and light spectrums, which also means if the governments of the world, if the elite, if there's somebody that knows about this and they're in charge of the world, let's just say they're one step ahead of everybody and they understand that the sun is getting hotter and brighter, maybe they're trying to dim the sun by injecting particulates into the atmosphere to disperse it or reflect it back up towards quote unquote space or the sky or the dome or whatever, which if we live in a closed system is only going to make it hotter, but it'll negate the bright heat of the sunlight reaching the earth or whatever. And so anyways, my theory that I have on the sun is that I think it's a strong contender for the abomination that causes desolation. I think that the sun, if it were to get that bright, that it would become like the stories of old where the sun fell to the earth and the sun chariot came down and scorched the earth and stuff. Apollo's son had requested to like drive the chariot. That the sun starts to scorch the earth and burn things as it moves and transitions on its circuit. And it will start to scorch the earth. So people are starting to, the rich people start to go underground in preparation to avoid the sunlight in the daytime hours or whatever. And you'll have to stay in the night if that happens, to sort of, you'd have to go out shopping at night, and they would probably institute laws, and there'd be martial law and stuff for our protection. They would say that for your protection, don't go out in the sunlight during these hours or whatever.
Yeah, so I found the verses in Revelation, and it says, this is Revelation 16, starting with verse 8. The fourth angel poured out his bowl on the sun, and it was allowed to scorch people with fire. They were scorched by the fierce heat, and they cursed the name of God who had the power over these plagues, and they did not repent and give him glory. And then right after that it says, and the fifth angel poured out his bowl on the throne of the beast, and its kingdom was plunged into darkness. People gnawed their tongues in anguish and cursed the God of heaven for their pain and their sores, and they did not repent of their deeds. So first the sun gets really hot and scorches the earth and the people, and then it turns into darkness.
Yes.
And so what's interesting, so we were talking about that, about if you have a collapse of the Mayan civilization and the Anasazi in the Americas, well, I think it's super interesting that the Aztecs have this mythology about these 7 sacred tribes who lived inside the earth, and then they emerged one day. It sort of makes a lot of, it makes a lot of sense to me that happened at one point, because it's kind of like that a lot of people point to us and they say, well, prove to us about how come the Native Americans don't talk about any of this stuff. It's like they came out like the people in Fallout, and they don't even know what happened.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I think they found cities. I mean, clearly they found cities in the Americas. I mean, the Aztecs don't claim to have built the stuff.
No, right.
And when the conquistadors ask them who did it, they tell them giants did it.
Exactly. I just pointed that out. So Night at the Museum, they showed this exhibit where there's this, Mesoamerican pyramid or whatever, and they show the little miniatures, and they show them holding bags of food with a pole, and they're shooting blow darts at things. But then they show them on ladders, working on the pyramid or whatever. Those two things don't match. Advanced technology.
The people who built. That's the thing. It's like it. That's the one thing it doesn't make any sense based on the historical narrative, is that we're told that the Europeans were very backwards after the Roman Empire fell. Right? They had no idea how to do they didn't know how to do anything about with their own sewage. These people were like morons. We're told.
Right.
We're told at the same time the people in the Americas are building these massive megalithic pyramids. I imagine those people, so what we're led to believe is the people in America were more advanced than the Europeans at a very similar time. But by the time the Europeans get over to the Americas, these people are severely backward.
Yeah.
So they're not the ones who did it, and they're not related to the people who did it either. Because that knowledge was never passed down. Because if you think about it, if the Europeans showed up during the times where those pyramids and the people who built them were in their heyday, they would have had a real tough time taking the place.
Right, exactly. I think that a lot of so imagine, let's say that the world back then was similar to the world today, where some people might have known that something was coming, and so they built underground bunkers or whatever, and they went into the earth, and then they came up out of the earth and emerged. But this is many generations later, or even a couple generations later. Like the children don't know anything of the surface,
Nothing.
like, so they come up just like you see in Fallout or whatever, they emerge from the earth, or and possibly and or inner earth citizens, people who live inside of the earth already in the cavernous spaces that exist in the earth, entire cultures in the hollow sections of the earth. So like I was saying, I think that there's a depressurization that may happen and the gases come up and stuff. And that actually reminded me of so anyways, that would open up the ability for people to come up into the surface, because electromagnetically, logically, if electromagnetics is involved in above us in the firmament and stuff and keeps people from actually leaving this closed system, not just a physical barrier, but an invisible one, a spiritual barrier, which is electromagnetic in nature, that it would also run down into the earth or under the earth
Do you
as
think
well.
that that's what might be the Van Allen radiation belt that
Yeah.
they're always talking about?
Yep, I totally do. And there's two. So there's one on the inside because the Earth produces a magnetic field. And so that magnetic field inversely creates pressure and has an effect on the world or the atmosphere just below it, but also has an effect on the atmosphere
Yeah,
just
I believe
above it.
that's kind of what I think. I wonder when people are talking about like a globe, we're not talking about the land, like, but the whole realm
Yeah,
is encompassed in some kind of a sphere. So it's
yeah,
like it's very
possibly.
similar to the top as it is the bottom. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, it could be like the upside down is just
It's like a
inverse
big
of
snow globe.
our world. So imagine this. Have you ever heard of the what was it called? The laughing epidemic?
Mm-mm.
So remember earlier I was talking about Tanzania and like the heart of Africa and all the volcanoes that were there and everything, right? Lake
Mm-hmm.
Victoria. So obviously these giant volcanoes are there, which means that's a place on Earth where there's entrances that go into the Earth. So there may be some credence to the whole out of Africa theory, right? Where people came up out of the Earth from inside the hollow Earth
Oh,
through
wow,
these
interesting.
openings in Africa. And
And
there's
you can
other
see those
places
old,
too.
if you see those old maps of Africa too, there's all those kingdoms and stuff like that. There's so many different like castle
Yes.
structures shown on an old map. Like, why would
Yes.
that ever have looked like that? Maybe that's
Yeah.
what it looked like before whatever happened, and then you have like this massive desert there where these once
Mm.
great kingdoms were.
Yeah, I speculate that a lot of inner Earth people came up out of the Earth and emerged, similar to the Native American stories of emerging from within the Earth. But in Tanzania specifically, they had this interesting story where at a local school, uh, a bunch of the students spontaneously started to laugh. And they couldn't stop themselves. And then pretty soon it started spreading. The laughter was like
You got like
infectious.
the
And
Joker syndrome.
exactly, the whole city pretty soon started laughing. It was over like 200 people that could not stop laughing for weeks. They laughed so much that they were reporting like being in pain and they were hurting and it gave them anxiety and stuff. They could not stop laughing. And if you look it up, the official explanation for this is they were delusional. It was mass hysteria. That's it. I say gases were being released from inside the earth, nitrogen and oxygen, that combine to make nitrous oxide. And a huge amount of nitrous oxide gas as a cloud comes through. Nobody can see it because it's invisible. And everyone starts feeling really giddy and they start laughing or whatever for a long time. And in like manner, in Europe, they had a dancing plague at one time where
A
people
dancing
could not.
plague?
Yes,
Whoa.
people danced themselves almost to death. They could not stop dancing.
What? That's wild.
Yeah,
I want to stick with the one
injuries.
thing. I want to ask the one question first before you go into the dancing plague,
Yeah.
the footloose plague. That you had, so science saying that this was just mass hysteria, but that's like a description of what is, but that's not a cause.
Yes, right.
Right? You could describe
What's
that
causing this?
they are being hysterical, but
Right.
like what caused them to be hysterical?
Right,
Like
exactly.
a mass psychosis at the same time?
Yeah, they don't have any explanation. They just, I mean,
Have you ever done a video about that?
no, I've just kind of referenced it. I might do a video. I
That
don't know.
sounds like one of those ones with like if you did on like a TikTok on that, that would be
That would be a
that's
good
great,
idea.
That's a great video idea. Definitely a great video idea.
Yeah, I might do that. But it's in like manner they had the dancing plague, same exact concept. So these people could not stop dancing, and they speculated that either it was mass hysteria, and people are just making it up and it's in their own heads, or they were bit by some sort of an insect or something that caused, convulsions or whatever. And that's where we get the jitterbug from. That where people are bit by the jitterbug,
Are you serious?
Yes. And check this out. There's actually, so I think that those are gases as well. I think that these gases are released, people are breathing them, and it's causing like twitching and convulsing and stuff, depending on what kind of gas it is. There was a scene in The Wizard of Oz that was taken out called the jitterbug scene, where the characters, Dorothy and the lion and all them, they started like dancing and they couldn't stop. They weren't in control of their bodies. And they were like getting closer and closer to Oz, but they like went through this creepy forest or whatever. It's the same scene right when the scarecrow has a gun. Like the scarecrow is like has a gun and they're all scared of the monkeys coming to get them and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right after that, there was this whole dance scene where they like the jitterbug came out. There's this gigantic insect, and it comes out, and they're like they uncontrollably can't stop dancing.
That is wild. So where in Europe was this supposedly taking place?
I don't remember, honestly.
I'll have to look that up. Dancing plague. Yeah.
So there was the laughing plague, and Monty Python did a skit that I believe is in reference to this laughing epidemic. It was called The Funniest Joke or The Most Dangerous Joke or something like that, where everyone just kept laughing. And then there's this concept of laughing to death, like as portrayed in Roger Rabbit.
Who dies? Oh, the weasel dies. He laughs so hard.
Yeah, the weasels can't stop laughing. He's like, one of these days you're gonna die laughing or whatever.
Here you go. So this is the dancing plague of 1518, or dance epidemic of 1518. It says was a case of dancing mania that occurred in Strasbourg, modern day France, in the Holy Roman Empire from July 1518 to September 1518. Somewhere between 50 to 400 people took to dancing for weeks. There are many theories behind the phenomenon, but most popular being stress-induced mass hysteria suggested by John Walker. Other theories include ergo poisoning. There is controversy concerning the number of deaths. What the heck, man? So this is why I want to have you on, because this is the kind of stuff that I had no idea about that. Now I got to look up the laughing plague.
Yeah. And that was in 1518. So the Middle Ages, once again, coming up, right? Only, maybe 200 years after the Black Plague, the Black Death and all that stuff. Like I feel like, I know a lot of people, I've heard you even say like, that there's different time contenders for when the season of Satan officially began, or Satan's little season.
Sure.
I lean towards the end of the Dark Ages.
Well, that would sort of fit. I guess the truth is, like, when did they end? I've thought the exact same thing, because I thought you have kind of two big shifts kind of in the history we're taught in school. Mm-hmm. Is that, like, of course, being in America, we obviously focus on 1776. Right. That's like a big part of that's kind of like the start of our history. So we focus on that. But the other thing obviously we're told about in school is 1492. So right around 1500, all this stuff just breaks loose and everybody's just free to travel throughout the world.
Yes.
Where it seemed like a different thing. And so when you have like the stories from like these famous Freemasons like Manly P. Hall about the secret destiny of America and how it's the new Atlantis and all that kind of weird esoteric stuff. It's weird how this all takes place at this exact same time, and they go seek out the land of the plumed serpent.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. So I'm open to the idea. I think that idea might make people uncomfortable because they don't like that maybe it seems like the little season is pretty long.
Well, I've got a remedy for that. So check this out. So now we're talking about time and the concept of time. The issue here is that time, for me personally, and some other people, does not seem to be stagnant, or what do you call it? Reliable. Time speeds up and time slows down. Jesus talks about one of the signs of the end was the speeding up of time, or the shortening of days.
He was going to shorten the days.
Yes. So I have done a few different videos on time speeding up and how this accounts for people decades ago who are 20 years old looking older, like they're 30 years old or whatever, and how time is actually our timekeeping is speeding up because the luminaries are speeding up in their transit. So it's not actually time that's speeding up. It's just how we mark time. The marking of time is actually speeding up. So
well, it does say in Daniel that a man is given the ability, or somebody's given the ability, to change the times and the seasons.
Yes. And immediately after that, it literally says, he references time, times, and then half of a time. Or it literally says the splitting of time, right? Or the dividing of time, making time smaller, you could say. But here's the theory. After the Dark Ages end, and you have this renaissance, this rebirth, like literally, what do you call it? Satan's child? Like
the Antichrist?
Yeah, maybe not the Antichrist. What do they usually give him a name? Like in movies, like the son of the devil is usually named, like
spawn of Satan.
Yeah, like, I don't know. He's got like Damien or something, like
Damien is in the Omen, right?
Yeah. So anyways, after you have this birth of the devil, basically the introduction of the devil into our world, or Satan, or negative energy, or whatever you want to call it, immediately after the Dark Ages. And what would we expect? I would expect to see plagues. I would expect to see wars. I would expect to see coming on the scene hot and strong with evil. You know what I mean? All the things we would associate with that, and the degradation of society, and public torture, and you know what I mean? Just evil being accepted everywhere. All the things that we associate, I would expect to just flood into our world immediately after the Dark Ages end. And if time, at that point in time, started to speed up so that Satan's time is short, right? Time starts to speed up, then that means the Dark Ages were not as long ago as we think. That time is actually getting faster and faster and faster the further we progress forward, which is why we feel like time moves faster the older we get. You see what I'm saying? So what that means is this is not the year 2026, if that's true.
Sure.
That also means 2012, the Mayan end of the world, hasn't even come yet, possibly.
Sure, yeah. Well, yeah, where are they getting 2012 from based on their calendar anyways?
It was like the amount of cycles or whatever from the start date to the last
So
entry.
How did they determine when the start was? Based on our calendar?
No,
see, that would probably be that would make sense. What you're saying is that it's kind of like some people, and I was once like this too, based on okay, so we're saying if Adam lived about 6,000 years ago, and so some people have done almost kind of just the easy math, saying, hey, days 1,000 years to God, you got 6 days of creation, then you have on the seventh day he rested. So what if Jesus comes back right at the end of this 6,000 years to start this new 1,000 years of the millennial kingdom?
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. The problem is, I don't think that we're living in the year 6,000 or anywhere close to it. I think that's you're starting with your concept is not totally off. It's just your numbers, your reference points are wrong.
Yes, right.
So if you have this calendar that the Mayans had, it might be more accurate than you think, but you have to be able to start at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
In order to process when this end comes.
I think it gets tricky when trying to calculate time. If the luminaries, which is how we base our timekeeping methods off of, if they in fact do have the ability to slow down, even stop sometimes, or speed up, then calculating and trying to calculate how long these eras are and how long these
eons, ages,
even the ages of people. So if you go back further in time, when time was slower, you might have somebody that's 15 years old, but in reality, in our years, they're 27 or 30, or you know what I mean, or whatever.
Right.
So you have a period whenever the luminaries are going really slow, the days drag on. If you have a birthday, from birthday to birthday, if you take that same amount of actual time and you take and you apply it and compare it and contrast it to our years, you could probably fit 3 of those years of today into one of their years. So we would have more birthdays in the future, in 3 birthdays, let's say, to I'm just making this up, but 3 birthdays compared to one of theirs. You know what I mean? Because the luminaries are moving 3 times faster today than they used to be long ago. So long ago, time would drag on. It would last a lot longer. So if we go further back in time, the beginning of the time would actually have been a lot slower. But as it gets forward and forward, it goes faster and faster and faster, which means the length of time between now and let's say the Dark Ages, the end of the Dark Ages, is a lot shorter. And that we haven't gone 2,000 years since Jesus on the cross or whatever, just to say
that
it's actually been a shorter amount of time, which is interesting because during the Dark Ages, you have the most examples of people drawing the accounts of Jesus and the ascension and his baptism and stuff. There's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of drawings and writings and all this stuff that just comes right out of the Dark Ages, almost like it happened during the Dark Ages.
And a lot of this stuff is remarkably consistent with the way it all looks. I think that's really interesting, is the way that the saints are often depicted very similarly. It's almost like that these people,
oh yeah,
it's either the same people doing it, or it's people that all believe this is what they look like.
Yes. And during the Dark Ages, they also had these accounts of the saints that had superpowers. Like, they were trying to kill these people and they could not kill them. So they had to torture them publicly in order to try to scare everybody else that didn't have superpowers. These people were immune to pain. They, my favorite example was there was this one Christian martyr who was being grilled on hot metal. And he told him to flip him over because he thinks he's done on this side. And he was joking, as he's being tortured. They were immune to pain, and
well, historically,
what
even the Apostle John was they tried to boil him alive.
Yeah, and these people were like,
where does that story even come from? It's funny because obviously it's not in the Bible, but that's historically a story that they tried to kill John and they couldn't. Was that John, his earthly body, or was that John after he was already, if he was in a resurrected, glorified body?
And here's something else to consider too. Physically, aside from just attributing it to miracles or faith or whatever, scientifically, what could cause somebody to exhibit these types of superpowers, right? Oftentimes, during the Dark Ages especially, the Christian people and the saints that we're talking about lived underground. They hid themselves. They lived in caves and caverns and underground cities and stuff where, like I speculated, there was plasmas, cold plasmas that were rising up from within the earth that rejuvenate the skin and enhance the cellular what do you call it, the cellular structure, so that it I just lost the word, but the cells rejuvenate or whatever, you know what I mean, the cellular structure. What is it called? It's what Doctor Who does when he comes back to life.
I didn't see Doctor Who.
Dang it. But anyways, you get my point, right? The cells don't die when they're exposed to this ambient electrical cold plasmas, which is now being used in medical facilities on a small scale, where they're trying to use it to get rid of people's wrinkles and blemishes and stuff like that. If you live inside of an entire cave system or in the catacombs underground or whatever, where you have cold plasmas or the spirit of God rushing forth, just reinvigorating you, but everyone on the surface is evil and going to kill you if you come up there, you go up there, you spread the good news or whatever, and you act as a superhero would, Well,
there's this place historically called, was it Derinkuyu? Derinkuyu. Okay, you got it. And so what this says is this was a Christian place where Christians lived, and the city could accommodate 20,000 people that lived underground. And I think that's really one of the most interesting places.
You know what else is interesting? Go back 2 pictures real quick, if you don't mind. You see how they have the stone door that rolls off to the side?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can roll that away from the other side just as easily. I have a theory about that was actually to keep out giant insects at the time. That there was
that sounds
monsters
like Fallout
and
2
stuff.
right there.
Yes.
Well, I would say historically that it really makes not a lot of sense why that place exists, because just if we're told based on the history we're taught. Because if you were worried about other people, you would really not want to live underground, because if they found out where you lived, you'd be screwed.
Yeah.
They'd smoke you out. They'd cover the opening. You'd be...
Right.
you'd not be long for the earth. So I mean, it was some
No.
kind of a supernatural thing or some kind of a threat from the heavens that people would do that. And also, I
Yeah.
can't help but think when I see cave systems like that, and you also see real pockets of like preserved stonework in there too, not just a mountain. It's like I wonder how much that stuff was actually just melted, and now it just looks like an old cave system.
Yes. So I think a lot of the radiation might account for the melting. I know a lot of people want to say associate melting with heat, but radiation can also loosen bonds of the chemical composition of anything, and it can cause the bonds to become weak bonds, because there's different types of bonds, and some bonds can allow objects to stretch and to melt. And they even show you that in the new Stranger Things, like at the end of the season when that building was melting. Remember?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, from the radiation. It wasn't like heat, otherwise they would be all hot inside of that building. It
Yeah,
was
they would have it
radiation.
would have cooked them before it melted
Right.
all the steel around
Yes,
them.
it was changing the chemical makeup of the composition of. They can do that to rocks. They can do that to buildings. It depends on the
That's an
structure.
interesting idea because if imagine if that was used as some kind of technology, maybe could that explain some of the weird megalithic structures like in Peru? You know, that look like big marshmallows.
Yeah, I
You know,
think
because
so.
that's what some people often say. They say that these things were not stone; these were poured. But you're like, but they're one solid block. So what if they were both, though? What if they were
Right.
that you changed the molecular structure of this stone,
Yes.
and then you could mold it because some of those walls make no sense.
I
How
know.
they're all different sizes, and they have those little kind of key-looking stones in little places
Yeah.
that you can't even slide a piece of paper in between those stones. They're so tight together.
Yeah, they're
Cyclopean.
obviously not chiseled. I mean, like
No.
it's clear. It's evident in itself by looking at it that it's
Hmm.
not chiseled, it's not carved, that they were shaped that way. And not just that. So people might say, "Oh, those were poured," right? But if we're talking about radiation being able to change the bond at the molecular level, right? We can find objects in real life that were obviously not poured because they're mountains. I don't know if you've ever seen a picture, but there is like this mountainside that's just rock, solid rock, and it has like an imprint of someone's hand, like they just like went like that into it, like fingerprints that are
How big
like
was
if
the handprints?
a little bit bigger than my hand actually. It's a pretty big
Okay, so it was
hand.
just normal sized person hand.
Yes. So it looks like let's imagine that the mountain was made out of like Play-Doh or clay or something more malleable, and you just took your hand and just pushed it in and then just like drug your fingers down. That's what this is in the side of this solid rock mountain. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Which means that it was at some time more malleable like clay or something like that. You know what I mean?
Interesting. So do you think that had something to do with plasma?
I think that um, there's two types of plasma that happen during the plasma apocalypse. One is life giving, which comes up from the earth, and I call those geoplasmas. And they're inner earth gases that ionize. They come up as cold plasmas that you can bathe in, you can work with. They don't shock you, they don't burn you or anything. And they contribute to longer lifespans and good health. And then we have dangerous and destructive plasma that tends to be more of a red spectrum color that comes down from the sky when the sky opens. And that tends to be more ionized hydrogen and stuff that comes down into our world. And those are like the Steves that you see they call them Steves, which are like giant, they're almost like auroras, but they look like plasma filaments in the sky, but they're not auroras. They're extremely hot plasmas that are all the way up in the higher atmosphere, and they come down. If they come down onto the Earth, they would petrify. They wouldn't even just like electrocute. They would blow things up. They would petrify things. Like that's how powerful these cosmic plasmas are way up in the upper atmosphere. And I'm not talking about the aurora borealis or anything. I'm talking about uh, like concentrated plasmas, filaments that come
Hmm.
down just like in a plasma ball, almost like lightning, but not as small and not as quick, and they are long
And so you
lasting.
think that that's what could kind of maybe be the evidence could be some of those gigantic Lichtenberg figures that when you see from
Yes.
like a satellite image.
Yeah.
I know
So
Vitaly and I talked about that on one of the first little season podcasts we did. It's like it looks like just a lightning bolt that just
yeah.
fired and just scorched everything like a circuit board.
Yes. So I think that sometimes it can be attributed to plasma that comes down, but I feel like, so remember, there's also electricity that comes up from the Earth itself. And in the Lichtenberg patterns, the electricity isn't usually just like coming down from above and it's just dotting it. Otherwise, it would create craters and other types of features from above. When you run the plasma or the electricity underneath and through the wood or through the earth, that's what causes all the separations and caves and river systems and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
there's electricity that comes up through the earth, like I was saying. So you have destructive electricity from above. I mean, the one from below, I guess you can consider it, depending on your perspective, to be destructive because it will open up the earth. It'll cause cave-ins. It'll
It's got
cause
to cause some kind of destruction if that
holes.
happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Sinkholes and things like that.
Yeah. But the one from above is more dangerous because that one carries more radiation from the gamma rays up there in the upper atmosphere and X-rays that is because it's spinning as it comes in. Plasma likes to spin, and as that huge tendrils of plasma are reaching down into our world, they're spinning and they're flinging off X-rays and gamma rays and stuff, and they have the ability to manipulate objects down here on at a physical level, like I said, petrifying them. It can literally change the bond. So instead of loosening the bond, it can also inversely strengthen the bond and tighten it and remove like water, for example. So you might have seen petrified fish. There's all kinds of examples of petrified fish. Petrified in what? Like fish live in water. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
that's right. Yeah.
something
Yeah,
happened
how did that happen?
to
Yeah.
something happened to the water. Something must have struck the water. Some people would just say, "Oh, they were in mud." They're not in mud. Some of these fish are in the middle of eating another fish. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous how many examples of that there actually are. By the way,
There's fossils of fish eating other fish at the same time.
lots. So many that it's just begs questioning what the hell is going on. That there's what are the odds that there would even be one fish in the middle of eating another fish as it fossilized, but having 10 or 20 examples that are completely different is mind-blowing. There's
Yeah, that's
petrified
interesting. We
jellyfish.
again that was something we literally just talked about on the last JT's mixtape about how the fossilization process is nothing like what they've told us it is.
Oh yeah,
Because that's what we were talking about, like
give that video.
yeah, so like there was petrified acorns. They were just stuck in water
Yes.
for like a year.
Right.
So like what caused them to do that? And
Yes.
yeah, we were talking about kind of, I don't really believe in dinosaurs like we're told in school, but it is interesting those animals, whatever they were, are in that kind of arched pose where it's like they suffocated
I
real
like
fast.
the point that you made on that it looks like they drowned or they suffocated.
Yeah, like they
But they were
drowned in mud
asphyxiated
probably.
somehow.
Because obviously it was something, it's not like water because eventually you'd go limp after you
Right.
drowned. But
Yes.
but they were still rigid, like they were
Well,
stuck in that position.
let me tell you my theory. So my theory is that, like I said, that if gases all do release from within the Earth, it's going to cause earthquakes the world across. Wherever you have gases going up through, it's going to break apart the inner Earth, and the Earth is going to cave in. There's going to be earthquakes, right? When you have that happening a lot, and the ground starts to shake and vibrate and move back and forth, now it's sloshing the waters around, and all that pressure is pushing the water up, which is going to merge with the soil and the sand and the debris, and it's going to create quicksand, and it's going to create mud where the heavy, dense objects are just start sinking down into it. And dinosaurs, being large reptiles or whatever they are, right? Giants, humanoid giants, any large structures or buildings, like if they would just start sinking down into the earth as the earth just became liquid form underneath their feet. And then whenever it stops shaking, it will harden back up, just like that picture you showed of the car or something that was stuck in the earth. Was it a car?
Yeah, well, there was a modern phenomenon of some kind of a mudslide that looked just like, there was a car. You could just see the top of the roof. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens during liquefaction. So the water will become muddy and like quicksand, but the second it stops shaking, the water recedes very quickly and it all solidifies like in a short amount of time all the way around, encasing the person in the earth. They would just be trapped, stuck in the earth. You know what I mean? And then if you're down there, you'd probably be like, if you're an animal, you'd probably be like tilting your head back, trying to get oxygen or something, like trying to get back up. But they become petrified rather quickly. But as far as the fish in the water, that's a different story. So if you run electricity, a high voltage, extremely high voltage, like from this cosmic thunderbolts coming down from above, and the water is not completely pure, fresh water, and it's got like sand and debris and all kinds of stuff in it, right? The water can just evaporate, and all of the substance inside of it can solidify, like the salt, for example. Like all the things inside the ocean water and stuff like that can just solidify and become like a block of rock and just instantly flash petrifying
Well, I
the
would love to
fish.
hear it. I would love to hear an alternative explanation, but it doesn't seem like anything makes sense actually, because I never really even thought about that, because I could only picture stuff being covered in mud on top of the land. But obviously, if a landslide happened into the water, well, then the fish would stop eating.
Yeah.
So it had to have been instantaneous.
Yes, exactly. Right? There's petrified jellyfish. How do you petrify a jellyfish?
Yeah, that's weird.
Like the fish in the middle of eating another fish and being flash petrified reminds me of the mammoths in the middle of eating, flowers and stuff, and walking along with baby mammoths, and they're flash frozen in the Arctic in the north. It's like instant freezing happened in some places, instant petrification happens in other places, and it's just, the word cataclysm.
No, it's funny. I just was thinking about that. We were just talking before about the trees or the mountains. Are they trees? Are they giants? Are they trolls? Are they giant dragons? Or are they old cities? And I said, I think it's a little bit of maybe all of them. I also believe that God created mountains too. So like, there's also the possibility that they're just mountains.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking about that before, because I remember originally Vitaly's idea or theory was that all the mud flood is a result of liquefaction. And then eventually I said I couldn't really buy that too much, because I was like, because too many things are too well preserved. For if it was this earthquake that was this powerful, there would have been a lot more destruction and a lot left that would have just been, you would have been digging up just ruins, like kind of you find a lot in Rome. But maybe it was a little bit of all the above, because I was wondering if the volcanic ash, which again, if you read about Vesuvius happening with Pompeii and Herculean, it says that 70 feet of ash was dumped onto these places, so like it buried them, and they were well preserved. So I thought, what if the mud flood got ejected up into the atmosphere and
I like that.
It all settled.
And you know what else? But let's say you have the introduction of ash into the atmosphere. At the same time, if that happens during vapor canopy type conditions, it's going to get moist and it will turn into mud. And literally rain mud down on top of people.
Right. So what you could have is you could have natural phenomena where you have like what you have natural mudslides today. Mm-hmm. Could be part of the mud flood. It could have been liquefaction, and it could have been this third thing, and it could be something else we don't know about too. Is that the conditions around the world when it was all going haywire were different in different places, but yeah, that's good, man. But anyway, that's a pretty good place to leave it. I think we've been going on for 2 hours. Is there anything else you want to close with? I know this was a little bit scattershot, but I think people, I'm sure they're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed our time hanging out and talking. If people are interested in some of the things that I've mentioned, they can check out my YouTube channel and my website. Like I said, JayDreamerZ.com. I spent years and years. I keep building and adding to it all the time. And if they want to support me, they can go to my Patreon or whatever. And there's a chat on my Patreon. They can upload pictures and talk to each other and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, I know the conversation was, hopefully you guys were keeping up, because I know me and Jay get nerded out on some of this stuff. It's probably a lot to take in, but I want to read one last thing. I forgot, because I did pull this up just so we can, just because we won't, this is too good to not talk about for a second. I want to read about the laughing plague.
Okay.
What is that? How do you say that? It's the Tanganyika laughter epidemic. And so this is not that long ago, 1962. It was an outbreak of mass hysteria or mass psychosis illness, rumored to have occurred in or near a village in Kashasha on the western coast of Lake Victoria in Tanganyika or Tanzania. Why didn't they just say Tanzania? near Uganda. And it said the laughter epidemic began on January 30th, 1962 at a mission-run boarding school for girls in how's it? Is it Kashasha?
I can't see
Kashasha?
it.
Yeah. It started with 3 girls and spread throughout the school, affecting 95 of the 159 pupils aged 12 to 18. Symptoms lasted for a few hours to 16 days, averaging around 7 days. The teaching staff were unaffected and reported the students were unable to concentrate on their lessons. The first outbreak of Kashasha lasted roughly 48 days. The school was forced to close in March 18th, 1962, when it reopened in May 20th. A second phase of outbreak affected an additional 57 students. The all-girl boarding school reclosed at the end of June. And wait, it says the epidemic spread to Nashamba of Medulla district, a village 55 miles west of, I hate these African names, Bukoba, where several girls lived in April, May 1962. 217 mostly young villagers had laughing attacks over the course of 34 days. It's what it says anyways. I'm going to skip to the end. It says, in all, 14 schools were shut down and 1,000 people were affected.
Wow.
What the heck? I had to just read that. I know that was kind of a weird ending for the show, but truth is stranger than fiction, we often find out. But man, that's something I'm going to have to talk to Brian about that. I'm sure he's going to be really... You know what Brian's going to say, don't you?
It's demons.
It's demons, bro. It's demons, bro. He might be right, though. He might be right. That's freaking crazy. Yeah. But anyways, Jay, I really appreciate you coming on because this is always a fun conversation with you. Yes, and all your links will be in the description. We'll definitely have to do it again. Maybe we'll have to dial in on like a specific topic because I know we can...
Yeah, for sure.
We can get a little bit all over the place like we did today.
There's so much to talk about.
There is so much to talk about. We should probably, because we shouldn't wait so long to record something together.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Really, I hope you guys enjoyed it. And guys, if you guys want to support this podcast, please check out the sponsor of this podcast, Modern Roots Life. And if you guys want to get these episodes early and uncensored, check out my Patreon channel and subscribe there. But either way, I love you guys. Appreciate you. God bless.